Blox Fruits, Fisch, A Dusty Trip. What do these three games have in common? Well, they were once the largest game on Roblox, but they all quickly fell off. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive and analyzing the fall off of some of the greatest Roblox games. Quick disclaimer, the source for most of the game's CCU is from rollimons.com, and I don't think it's 100% accurate, but it does show a good amount of information for each game. Back to the video.
Oh, bro, I'm not.
Roblox was released in 2006, almost 20 years ago. Within those years, only a handful of games have made it to the very top of the popular list. The single most popular game in 2019 was Adopt Me, with a daily concurrent player count averaging around 150k to 200k, and a record-breaking peak CCU of 1.9 million in 2021. It continues to grow for a few more years past 2019. But then, another game rose in popularity, Piggy. Piggy was a survival horror game with a complex story. As the game added more chapters, more players were joining the game. Along with YouTubers covering the game, like Creekcraft, Piggy will continue to dominate the platform with CCU at around 200k to 300k. However, after Chapter 12 was released and the true ending was solved, the game started to decline. When Book 2 started, the player count has decreased dramatically. I think the reason why is that Book 2 was like a sequel to Book 1, and most people weren't hooked on the new story, or they were just tired of the same repeated gameplay. There were actually attempts to revitalize Book 2 as it was a higher quality than Book 1, but unfortunately it never really happened. After Book 2 was completed, Piggy stopped receiving updates to the story. The developer behind Piggy, Minitoon, stopped working on Piggy and focused on developing his other game, Piggy Intercity. It makes sense for a story game to fall off after the story is finished, but it was such a great game. During 2021, another game was on the rise, Blox Fruits, an RPG bandit beater inspired by One Piece. It wasn't a huge game on release. During 2021, it had two updates. Update 15, which added the Dercy, and Update 16, which was the Halloween update. These two updates have increased Blox Fruits' CCU to around 150k. But then, one of the biggest update dropped on September 10, 2022. Update 17 Part 3 was one of the largest and most anticipated update ever released in Blox Fruits. With the CCU peaking at 1 million, it set a new record for the first ever game to hit 1 million CCU. But the main problem with Blox Fruits is its lack of updates. After Update 17 Part 3, Blox Fruits released two more updates, which are the Christmas update and the Valentine's update, and then they went completely silent. But then, on October 21st, 2023, after 8 months from the last update, Update 20 dropped, and it will mark the third biggest update for Blox Fruits. But not everyone was happy. People were complaining how the update was underwhelming for the time it took to release, but Blox Fruits kept updating the game all the way until the Winter Update Part 1, and then that issue was gone. That Winter Update was a highly anticipated update. Blox Fruits announced that the Dragon rework was coming out in the Winter Update, but then the Dragon rework was never released. There was no news about the Part 2 of the Winter Update until a year later. Update 24 delivered the promised Dragon rework along with other changes and additions to the game. Blox Fruits hit a all-time high of 2.7 million CCU. Unfortunately, this update was really controversial because people who had Dragon Fruit and Permanent Dragon didn't get the Dragon rework. Players were furious, demanding that the game change its greed decision, and eventually they fixed that mistake. From here on out, Blox Fruits will start to lose their players. The next update, along with the rise of new Roblox games, have put Blox Fruits in a bad state, and most of its players never came back to the game. At least for now. Another game that was similar to Blox Fruits, but not really, was Grand Peace Online, which I'll be referring to as GPO in this video. GPO, in my opinion, was a well-developed game with a fleshed out combat system and cool rules. However, there was a reason why it could never surpass Blox Fruits. GPO was a hard game to play compared to Blox Fruits. The combat system was pretty hard to learn at first, and getting good developers is really difficult early game. GPO was never a huge game, only reaching a maximum of 200k CCU at some point, and an average of 5k CCU. One of the problems with this game was the lack of permanency. There wasn't a permanent fruit system, and the stats are way more flexible compared to Blox Fruits, which means when switching builds, you have to change all your stats. But the main problem was the grind. To get the top tier items like the mythical fruits and weapons, you have to either grind the game for months just to get one of those items, or trade things that are worth $200+. When they added V2 of fruits and 5 style, it took forever to get them, and some of the fight styles are limited to certain races. These game systems made it annoying for players who want to get all the new stuff from the update. Honestly, the developer of this game should create a new game instead of working on GPO, because I believe that the development team has some great talent, but they are poorly shown off. Anyways, let's quickly move on to the next game. Doors is a horror game involving doors. Yep, nothing else, just doors. It's actually a horror game where you go through randomly generated rooms and there will be entities that will try to kill you. The main goal is to make it through all the doors, which were primarily door 100 back in the day. Doors didn't have a lot of CCU, with an average around 10k through 15k. It doesn't update too often, but when they do, it's really good. The Hotel Plus update and the Floor 2 update were the two biggest updates that Doors ever released, with the Hotel Plus update adding items like the Crucifix, and Floor 2 adding a whole new floor. Doors CCU peaking at 200k. I'm surprised that Doors doesn't have more CCU, but once you beat the game once, you usually don't play it again, even though the game is repeatable. Due to the lack of updates, I don't think Doors can blow up again, but it is a great game that people play once in a while. Jandal is a game developer, well, more like a game owner, who owns a lot of the big games on Roblox. One of the games that he used to own is A Dusty Trip, a game where you drive a car along a road on a randomly generated map. You can find many items and structures along the way, and every 5,000 meters, something special awaits you there. Dusty Trip was growing pretty fast with a CCU peak around 120k during the Plains update. But after that update, the game was sold to Dubik Studios, a company that owns a lot of Roblox games. Unfortunately, any game that is owned by Dubik Studio immediately adds monetization like loot boxes and pay to win. After Dusty Trip added all these things, the game fell off pretty quickly, along with the rise of another game sold through Dusty Trip, Dead Rails. Another game that experienced this monetization issue is Fisch. Can you guess what this game is about? Maybe fishing? Alright, so Fisch is a RNG game, but with the exception of, well, actually being distinct. Fisch has an entire map with different islands that you can explore, with many different rods, bait, quests, enchantments, boats, and more to fish up crazy things like an Aurora Megalodon. Fisch was released on October 2nd by a solo developer, and it rapidly started to gain popularity around the Halloween season. By mid-November, the game already reached hundreds of thousands of daily CCUs. When the major update in December released, titled The Northern Expedition, which added a giant mountain island, the game managed to reach a peak of about 850k players. During this time, the game was considered to be at its finest. But unfortunately, not all good games last forever. Around the time that the game took off, Dubik Studios actually bought it. Fisch saw an increasing amount of pay to win throughout the weekly updates. It got to the point where the players were angry with the overload of monetization, as well as calling the updates disappointing. This is why the decline of Fisch was mostly gradual, but it has a major dip when C2 released, around mid-March. C2 was a highly anticipated update, as it added an entirely new sea with multiple new islands, rods, quests, bestiaries, and more, in efforts to bring back the nostalgic feeling of Fisch. But it was clear that when C2 released, Dubik has failed in what they wanted to deliver. Instead of that nostalgic feeling, we got islands that felt empty and an amount of grind that shouldn't exist on release. Players quickly felt betrayed, so the daily CCUs dipped below 100k and it sits around 10k players. After this, the updates continued to be lame, and eventually the devs were forced to remove some excess monetization. But no matter what they did, it was clear that the game was cooked, and to this day it remains in the ashes. Wait, hold on. Well, I guess Fisch is back. But let's quickly move on to the next game. Big Games is a studio that makes games like Pet Simulator and Big Paintball. Throughout most of their games, they're known for adding a lot of pay to win. One of the games that face these issues is Pet Simulator X. You probably know how Pet Simulator works, but if you don't, Pet Simulator is a game where you collect and use your pets to break coins. Pet Simulator X has a CCU of 100k to 200k during its peak, but that didn't last for long. The game adds a lot of pay to win things, like the huge and Titanic plushies, which cost a lot of money. You get a plushie and an in-game pet that is the plushie that you purchase. The owner of Big Games, Preston, is not the greatest person in the world. During Pet Sim 99, he called out F2P players, and many people got mad at him since he acted like he didn't care for the player base. Slowly over time, Pet Sim X player count has been decreasing, and it's basically dead. Pet Sim 99 also faced the same issue of pay to win, but the game didn't die as quickly as Pet Sim X because of the increasing grind for huge pets. Moving on to the last game on our list, Jailbreak. Jailbreak is a pretty old game, released all the way back in 2017, which was 8 years ago. It was the biggest game on Roblox back then, with a CCU of around 20k to 30k, and many YouTubers like Creecraft.
Whoa, we got the Bugatti!
And my username Diz.
You realize that this vehicle's tires are literally impossible to pump?
Covering the game. It hit a CCU of 500k, which was the Ocean Splash ship update, which is the all-time high for Jailbreak. Jailbreak didn't fall off because of a game update. It was a great game throughout all its years, but it couldn't keep up with the other games. Jailbreak is currently sitting around 10k CCU, and it probably won't blow up again, but it will stay as a great game that everyone should play at least once. What makes Roblox is the games that the developers create and release on Roblox. Not every game can remain the biggest on Roblox, but it marks an era of Roblox when those games were the biggest thing on the platform. Unfortunately, the current demographic on Roblox is mostly children, so these stupid games like Steel Brainrot and Plants vs. Brainrot are currently taking over the Roblox platform. Watching the rise and fall of Roblox games is akin to witnessing the rise and fall of an empire or state, but we get to see it unfold over the span of a few years. It's a piece of history that we can look back on and remember how great the game was. Some games quickly rise because it was a fresh take on the platform, but certain decisions and updates can affect the game's player base a lot, which quickly leads to its downfall. We should learn from the mistakes of these games, so future Roblox games don't repeat the same mistakes. Roblox as a whole, right now, isn't too great, but maybe in the future ahead, it will be more promising.